Okay, today we're going to talk about stress and health and coping. The field of health psychology has become quite large, actually. There's a significant relationship between stress in our life, our health, or how we cope with that stress, and subsequently our health. As I mentioned, the broader field of health psychology is kind of concerned with the promotion of health and the prevention and treatment of illness as it relates to psychological factors. And psychological factors really do have a big role in not only prevention and treatment, but also the promotion of health. I consider myself to be a clinical health psychologist. So you can see here, illness has changed quite significantly over the last 100 or so years. Early on, people were dying of fevers and infectious diseases and pneumonia. Now, as you can see, in the 20th, 21st century, we're dying of heart disease and cancer and stroke and diabetes, actually, stuff like that, diseases that develop much more slowly over the lifetime. I think that helped us to also recognize maybe the role of lifestyle factors in stress and disease. Now, rather than having a more kind of purely biological model of stress, the prevailing view is much more of a biopsychosocial model of stress, with the realization that a variety of not only biological but psychological and social factors are important too. And just take a look at some of these, and you'll see personality does influence health. How we respond to if we're sick influences our health. Oh, tons of health-related habits and coping and stress. On the other side, the social support, social system factors, health education. Do we live with a lot of pollution and sanitation? How good is the medical care? And then a whole variety of biological agents, environmental toxins, exposure to infectious agents, genetic predispositions, and so on and so forth. Has helped us to realize just how complex disease is. So what is stress, and when do people feel stressed? Well, stress is kind of a general term describing this kind of psychological and bodily response to a stimulus that alters your body's state of equilibrium. So you're in this kind of equilibrium or homeostasis, and then something throws you out of equilibrium. Another sort of definition is that people often feel stressed in response to a real or perceived threat. Or another one is when there's an imbalance between the demands and resources in our lives. Again, but this idea that imbalance, you're thrown off your state of equilibrium. These stressors can be sometimes acute, very short-lived, other times they can be chronic, our whole life even. And how we respond to those stressors has a significant impact on whether they'll take a toll on us psychologically and on our health. So how do you know when you're stressed? Well, think about it for a minute. And my guess is that if you wrote down a list of symptoms, you would have emotions on that list, angry, sad, anxious, cognitions on that list, negative thoughts, things like that. Behavioral patterns on that list, things that you do when you're stressed. You fight, you eat, you exercise, and a host of maybe physiological changes. You get a headache, you get a backache, you sweat, your heart races, your breathing increases, all of these different things. And all these are components of stress. Interesting, some of the earlier models of stress show that oftentimes there's kind of an alarm phase. This kicks in something we call the fight or flight response, where the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis is very activated, and the sympathetic nervous system is activated, and the parasympathetic system is kind of turned off. Over time, if as we learn to deal with this, we kind of go into a resistance phase, deal with the stress, and we kind of adapt to it. But if we don't, if we remain chronically stressed, it takes its toll, and we can reach an exhaustion phase, and it can lead to sickness. And there's a lot of animal models and human models that support this. Again, this idea of perceptions are very key in determining stress, and I want to show you this example here. But let's say you're going to the movies, and your boyfriend or girlfriend are late for a date. The movie's starting, they're not here. Are you stressed? Many of us are, and how do you feel? And my guess is that you might feel a range of various kind of stressful emotions. But again, it depends on how you perceive what's going on here. What if you perceive the situation as they're inconsiderate, they're always late, they're hanging out with friends? Are you stressed? Yeah, not only are you stressed, but you may find yourself kind of getting angry. Or maybe you think, oh no, maybe they got into a car accident, they're on the side of the road dying. So again, now you're maybe fearful, because of the way you interpret the situation. Maybe you think they stopped to help an accident, probably administering CPR to victims. Well, maybe you're not as stressed now. Maybe you're proud. And again, so this is just to say that sometimes we have events, and it's how we interpret those events that can result in them being stressful, and how stressful and how we feel. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot this last one. So maybe if you thought, oh, they're late because they stopped to get me flowers or a gift. Are you stressed? No, you're happy. So that interpretation of that event left you with positive feelings again. So I think perceptions are really key. And oftentimes we sort of appraise the stress. I think it was Lazarus, a famous researcher, who said there is a primary appraisal. First of all, is there a threat? Yes or no. If there's no stress, no threat, then we can just kind of relax. If there is a threat, then we kind of go through a secondary appraisal process, and that is, do I have the ability to kind of cope with this stress, or the inability? If you feel like, yeah, I can deal with this, then it's not going to bother you, and that's sort of positive stress response. If you feel like you can't, you don't have the resources to cope, then this is a more negative stress, and it's going to take its toll. If we perceive control, is key in a lot of this. A lot of this is your perception. But over time, if you feel like you don't have control, or you can't predict when the stressor will hit, you can develop this kind of learned helplessness, which is problematic, depressing and stressful. Or if you can predict the stressor, then there's no way to anticipate or potentially control it. That can be real stressful. The stressors come in many different forms too. Sometimes there's an approach conflict where we have to choose between two things that we like, two good vacations, two good menu items, and it can be stressful to choose. Sometimes there's an avoidance conflict. We have to try to avoid two negative things, and they're both negative, and we don't know which one we want to endure and which one we want to avoid. And then sometimes there's a clear-cut approach avoidance conflict, where we want to approach, and yet we want to avoid the same thing as well. So we can be quite conflicted. There's many forms of stressors in life, anything from little daily hassles to major life changes that we have to deal with that can cause stress. These hassles add up over time. Major life events probably have a significant impact on us over longer periods of time. This Holmes and Race Stress Scale shows how stressful certain life-changing events are, everything from the death of a spouse to minor violation of law like getting a ticket. As you can see here, it gives you an idea of what generally kind of humans find stressful. relationships or the loss of relationships and personal freedom. But almost any change is going to be a little bit stressful. You know, a lot of this reflects like if you were to move somewhere. You know, some other stuff that you know, may not always assume that would be stressful, but you know, nevertheless, it is like an outstanding personal achievement, which is 28 there. You think that's a good thing, and yet, you know, outstanding personal achievement may create expectations for future success. There's a variety of work-related factors that can cause stress, and the environment, lighting and noise and crowding can stress us out. Job-related factors, if we feel like there's a great demand on us, but we have little control, that can create stress. You know, something like, you know, being an air traffic controller, where there's a lot on the line, and you have all of these, coordinating all these, you know, planes. These things can lead to burnout, and you know, burnout kind of leads to, you know, lack of enjoyment and kind of depression related to work. There are a number of personality traits that seem to be stressful and contribute negatively to health. One was a type A behavior. Some people seem to have this sense of urgency. They're always in a hurry. They're very competitive. Interpersonally, they're a little bit hostile. You know, if these traits look a little like you, you know, you could be at risk for heart disease. I think, or even all-cause mortality or death. Hostility is another one. Some people seem to have, you know, almost be characterized by mistrust and expectations of harm, and they have a cynical attitude, and they're just kind of hostile. This is associated with heart disease, and you know, a little bit more common in males than females, but you know, the more hostile you are, again, more likely to get heart disease, and I think also to die, all-cause mortality. Each of our bodies has this amazing immune system, white blood cells that have these, you know, mechanisms within you, an organism, that protect against disease by identifying and killing pathogens and tumor cells. These things are greatly influenced by stress. Glucocorticoids and stress hormones have a significant impact on the immune system, and over time, you know, can deplete it. There's a fascinating field of psychoneuroimmunology, and some of the big names in that over at Ohio State, the Keycote Lasers, have done fascinating work in this area. But what we know is that if you're stressed, your immune system, you know, is less effective. You're more likely to catch a cold. If you hurt yourself, it'll take a lot longer to heal from that wound, and even the rate of cancerous tumor cells will grow. Stress can influence heart disease. It can increase your blood pressure. It can result in the development of the atherosclerotic plaques that build up. Depression seems to, and anxiety may lead to heart disease through a variety of different pathways. And so these psychological and stress factors have a huge impact on health. Many people engage in health impairing behaviors. There are tons of them, and people engage in many of them. Smoking, excessive use of substances, drinking and drugs, poor nutrition. A lot of people eat poorly, they don't exercise, are overweight, stuff, unsafe sex, driving under the influence. And there's a variety of health impairing behaviors people choose to engage in that have significant and long-term impacts on health. The question is, so why do we do these things? Well, there's a variety of explanations for it. Some people do it because they don't know it's bad. Others do it because they don't think it's that risky, or that if they do it, it's not that severe or risky. Chances are, you know, things will be okay, or I'm not going to be harmed by it. Some people just feel like they're invulnerable. You know, bad things won't happen to them. Or it makes them feel good, or they're, you know, to drink or to smoke, or peers are pressuring them to do it. a lot of reasons why people engage in these behaviors that can harm them in the long run. There's an interesting, kind of model that says that if we do want to change, or that people are actually at different stages sometimes when they're contemplating change. And so, let's say that you were thinking about losing weight, or you needed to lose weight. Well, some people are in the pre-contemplation stage. Even though they are heavy and they may even know it, they're not interested in losing weight. Some people are in the contemplation stage, they're kind of thinking about it, but not really doing anything. Then you kind of move to the preparation phase where you're sort of planning, okay, how am I going to go about losing weight? Then you move into action, where you start changing things, exercising, parking further away, eating healthy, eating less, not having snacks. And then eventually you hopefully reach your goal, and then you maintain. You want to keep that weight off, and you're in the maintenance phase. And people are at very different stages sometimes when it comes to changing these health impairing behaviors. Some people have made the change and they're trying to maintain it, and other people are not even interested in making the change. As I mentioned before, when we talked about the kind of primary and secondary appraisals, people cope with stress differently. There are a number of problem-focused strategies people use, and they can actively cope, plan, talk to people, put aside competing activities, and just focus on the problem. There are other ways too. They're much more emotion focused. You can talk to your friends and vent your emotions and try to interpret the event in a way that helps you to find meaning, or you can try to disengage from it, do something else to engage your mind, or behaviorally or mentally, a variety of different ways. And then again, this idea of personality in coping. Many of these personality variables that people have can influence health. A hardy personality, people that seem to be strong in their commitment to things, and they believe they're in control, and they take on challenges, seem to have slightly better health. Optimists, people who believe that good things will happen to them, and in general tend to have better health. Avoiders, people who avoid problems, tend to have kind of worse health. Again, so personality is key here. Social support, very, very important. It affects how long we live, whether we're depressed, our immune system. We are definitely social creatures. The perceived social support is every bit as important as the enacted. So if I think I have support, that's real helpful. It's almost, probably as helpful as receiving the actual support. If you feel love, that's important, but also receiving the enacted support is important as well. And I think, in the interest of time, we'll stop here with this kind of, stress cat. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Thank you.